Good morning. We have an active, chatty room today, which is a great sign. I'm just the voice from above, but I'm here. Hello, I'm up here. I'm so happy to see you. I'm Terry DeVoe from the Grants to States program. I want to welcome everyone who's physically here, and then everybody who's tuning in on the virtual realm. And we understand it's about a 50-50 split this time, so that's pretty exciting. We continue to bring you here, or wherever here may be, and invest in this training because we've seen the effects of it being a good, proactive approach. There's a lot of trust in this program. As you may imagine, we give you bundles of money every year, and we just sort of trust you to be good stewards of it, and that's a little scary. But one thing that we do to ensure that it's all being handled very, very well is to bring you together for this kind of training once a year. And it's not something we can take for granted. There may be years where we don't have the opportunity to be together, but currently our IMLS leadership sees the value in this training and continues to invest in it, and we hope that that'll be the case for a long, long time. So we hope that you will enjoy the next few days, that you will come to this with a spirit of learning and collaboration. And we thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. Just gonna give a few notes at the outset before I introduce our resident expert of all things Wisconsin. This is a hybrid conference, so the most important takeaway I can give you is that when we are interacting here in the room and someone is saying something that needs to be heard, make sure that you're doing it into a microphone. We are recording this. We want the recording to have good quality audio, and the people listening in online also need to hear your voices. We've learned to keep a dedicated square on our slides, so the Zoom folks have got that all set up for the virtual people, and you shouldn't miss any content on the slides. Cindy and Laura are our resident IMLSers at the virtual table. Hello. They're going to be making sure that all of our virtual folks are with us and engaged and chatting along. And we do have Spanish language interpreters again this year. They are actually in a different room, so wherever they are, hello, we're happy you're here. And you might see them during breaks. The entire conference is in this room this year. We do not have breakout rooms for the first time, so we're going to see how it goes. And in terms of the health and safety protocols, things have changed in the federal government. So those of you that have come before and you've had to certify your health profile, we're not doing that anymore. But we do have these fun little dots that I see many of you in the room wearing, so please mind the dots. Green means people are pretty open to physical contact, and yellow a little bit less, maybe a fist bump or an elbow bump, and red is people are really just trying to distance still. The restrooms, if you haven't found them yet, are sort of out through the back doors and to the left. And with that, I think I'm going to move on to the non-boring stuff. So we are so pleased to have an official welcome from our really dynamic Chief Officer of Wisconsin, Dr. Darrell Williams, who is the Assistant State Superintendent at the Department of Public Instruction in Wisconsin. He is the really charismatic outward face of a wonderful team of people at the Wisconsin Division of Libraries and Technology. And we know he's on the road all the time, making sure that libraries are valued and understood for their importance in Wisconsin. And if you think you had a tough job during COVID, I want you to know that Dr. Williams was actually leading the emergency response for the entire state of Wisconsin during the pandemic. So if that gives you any indication of his capabilities, it sure does for me. He has been decades in the field of education and also spent decades in the Army. He is a decorated veteran with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, and I hope you will help me welcome him so that he can welcome us.
Good morning. Thank you very much. She was telling me all this stuff about myself as I was sitting over there getting me some coffee this morning, and I said, you must have been on the internet or somewhere. But let me just say first and foremost what an honor it is for me to be here with you. You know what, I said to myself whenever she had me reflecting back on the time I was the emergency manager for the state appointed by the governor for COVID. I mean, you really think about it. You know, you walk up on somebody and they say, oh man, you got COVID. Or do you remember when, you know, there was a time where if you didn't have a mask on, you know, when you go inside the store, you know, if nobody wanted, if you didn't have a mask on, you couldn't even get inside the store. And I said, man, times have changed, because if you go inside of a store with a mask on now, you're probably going to get the police called on you at this particular point. But let me just say, it's really great to be here. I want to start off and see if I can just kind of set the mood a little bit. You know, I'm really just a country boy from Mississippi, from a little town called Abbeville, Mississippi, about 316 people in it. And, you know, once upon a time, there was this man. His name was Mr. Ledbetter. And Mr. Ledbetter, he had a hog that didn't have but 3 legs. And the newspaper boy drove up in the yard and said to Mr. Ledbetter, Mr. Ledbetter, can you tell me why that hog ain't got but 3 legs? And Mr. Ledbetter said, well, son, if you really want to know, I'll tell you. And he said, well, he said 2 years ago, this house was on fire. And that hog dialed 911. And the fire department came and saved my wife. And he said, and last year, that same hog, when I fell down and couldn't get up, called 911 again. And they came and picked me up, and they saved my life. And he said, well, Mr. Ledbetter, you still ain't told me why the hog ain't got but 3 legs. And he said, well, son, when you got a hog that good, you can only eat him 1 ham at a time. Anyway, let me just say it's really an honor for me to be here with you at this conference here today. Ben told me if I'm going to sit up here, he said, do 3 things. He said, be on time, be brief, and be gone. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do that. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say what I came here to say, and then I'm going to sit down. But let me just say, I'm going to try to be like James Brown. I'm going to hit it and quit it. But on behalf of our state superintendent, Dr. Jill Underley, who really wishes she could be here. She tries to be everywhere like myself. And but she really thanks you for all of the work that you all do. And thank you for the support that IMLS has given us here within the state of Wisconsin. So she really sends her thanks. I want to thank Ms. DeVoe and the committee responsible for putting this conference together. And I really want to say thank you for keeping us believing by your continued support in the values of libraries, not only across this state, but really across this nation. I also want to thank our DLT staff here, my main man, my right hand, Ben, who's with us right here today. Ben, would you please stand, please? Arshad, I know you're watching, so I'm going to salute you right here on stage. So he's online, but he's really done a tremendous job. And let me just say to you, you know, as a kid growing up in Mississippi, I didn't have access to the library. The town that I came from, we had to walk about 15 miles or catch a ride to a place called Oxford, Mississippi, in order to have access to the library. And I will tell you, it was at that time where I began to realize the power of libraries and the value that they have inside of the community. And This is why I always tell people everywhere I go, the library is the most important place in any school or community. It's really the only place where you can go everywhere without really having to go anywhere. So, as many of you are aware as well, Wisconsin is not unique, as we face many challenges, especially with funding, issues with book bans and so forth, just like you all have in your respective areas. These areas really focus around issues dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, LGBTQ plus type of issues. But our librarians here within the state of Wisconsin, and I'm sure like yours, with the support of communities just like this, and with the IMLS support, have really stood tall to keep our libraries open while protecting the intellectual freedom of all people. So I say to Ms. DeVoe and to your team, we honor and we thank you for your dedication, your commitment, your devotion, but most of all, your courage, especially in this day and time. As history has taught us on more than one occasion, to achieve freedom and our intellectual freedom, it takes many twists and turns. But we at DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, we affirm that while you may not read every book that's in the library, there should be a book for everyone in the library. And so I thank you for your support on that. The fact that we are here today, all of us, representing states from all around the United States, and I believe I saw someone with a sign on that said Puerto Rico. And I'm trying to get to Puerto Rico, just to let you know. So if you got to have the next conference there so we can get there. Yeah. And so it really says that we made a sincere investment in our children and adults through our libraries all around the United States. And I will tell you, make no mistake about it, we are in the fight. And there's no more important time than us not only to stand together, but to walk shoulder to shoulder as we keep our libraries strong and vibrant for future generations. Despite the physical distance between us, the ties that bind us are really stronger than the forces against us. Because of the support from IMLS, libraries continue to serve as the heartbeat of our communities. So I thank you for the work that you continue to do, and that the work that we'll continue to do together on behalf of all people. The diversity that we really claim within our state and around this nation to be our strength must proudly be reflected inside of our libraries for all generations. Our libraries must be as rich and diverse as the very people reflected across this great state and around this nation, as all of our past and current struggles, we are all weaved into the past and present fabric of America. We must stand together. So here in Wisconsin, we are extremely grateful and thankful to IMLS for helping us address intellectual freedom issues here through funding such as the School and Public Library Workshop, helping us to provide consulting time for public libraries to conduct conversations around these critical issues. Here in Wisconsin, we have what's called Wisconsin Libraries Talk About Race. We all know that religion and race are two of the key issues that most people don't like to talk about, but it's those courageous conversations that you all have allowed us to continue to have those conversations around to make life a little bit better and expand for everyone. Our, what we call our CCBC, You allowed us to match funds with the CCBC to continue to provide support not only here within Wisconsin, but around the U.S. And so we are very excited about that. So over the past year, one of the many areas that I've been most impressed with is the work that we have done around workforce development. Let me just share with you one story. As we were at the library far up north, this veteran was sitting inside of the library, and he was using the library services and trying to find a job. And he said to me that his son had asked him for a couple of dollars to go to the store to buy something, and he said he didn't have it. And I mean, he really didn't have it. And if you are nothing against women, but if you are a man and you are supposed to be the macho head of the household, and your child walks up to you and asks you for a few dollars and you don't have it. And he said that really bothered him. And he said he saw the look in his wife's face and the look on his kid's face. And he said that he had to go and do something. And so he used the library. And at the time that we were there, he said that if it were not for the library and the services that they had there, he would not be sitting there trying to figure out which job to take, as he was trying to pick from 3 jobs that he had secured while he was right there inside the library. So for me, it's said to me, the library is more than just a place to get books. It's really a place that's changing lives for so many Wisconsinites, and I'm sure in your respective states as well. So I say to all of you who are here, I say to all of you who are online, on those days where you question whether or not you are making a difference, I say to you, not only are you making a difference, but truly you are the difference. So, as Assistant State Superintendent for Wisconsin, I want to say to all of you, welcome to Wisconsin, welcome to this conference, and I hope that you enjoy all of the amenities that we have to offer you here, especially in the great city of Milwaukee. So, welcome and thank you. And I want to do one other thing since I have the floor. Ben, I would like for you to come right here. And for those, Ben them knows that I make pens. And so Ms. DeVoe, I want to present you with one of my pens that I made last night. So, and I made sure that it writes. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you all do. So she's accepting this in representation for all of you. So I'm going to wipe that brown stuff off my nose a little bit later on. Yeah. All right, and to Arshad. See, you wish you had been here in person now. I know you're sitting here looking, hey, well, it's too late. But I have this for you. And it'll be, we'll have to send it to you, and I'm going to give it to Ben, and he will give it to you. But I usually don't get a chance to do this that often, but I will tell you, I just wanted to really recognize Ben while he is here. Ben, since I've been in this role, has really been my right hand. And in this virtual environment, we don't get a chance to really, I can tell Ben certain things and tell him how much I appreciate him, but I like to show people whenever I get a chance to shake their hand. And I just wanted to know how much I really appreciate, and I thank him for all of the work that he does, not only with me, but for everybody around the state of Wisconsin. Ben is a national figure in the world of libraries, and I'm going to tell you, his work is invaluable. And so I thought, if I can wrap it out, break it out the plastic. Probably probably should have had it already out. But,
It's more suspenseful.
but this is for Ben. And this right here is a handmade iron bookman. So he can put his book right here. This is truly representative of Wisconsin and all its fine qualities in metal and Harley Davidson and all this kind of stuff. And junkyards as well. Yeah. Thank you all very much. It's my honor to be here, and I wish I could stay here with you all day, but I'm finna drive about 4 hours up the road to Washington Island, and but it's my honor to be here with you, and I hope you have a great conference. Thank you.
Okay.
Just wanted to let us know, he says, Dr. Williams, I am so honored. You and the person next to you are great leaders. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Arshad and Cindy. And thank you, Dr. Williams, a man of many gifts, physically and symbolically. This has been so good to hear from you and to get inspired and revved up for these next days and for our journey as federal stewards of funds. So thank you again. Thank you so much. We'll release him in just a moment, but I'm going to get our icebreaker started. This will have you moving around. If you didn't know, this is a participatory conference. You will not be seated at all times, and this is one of those times. So what we've done in the past, if you've been here before, is we're going to line everybody up that's physically in the room by your length of service in a state library administrative agency. So if you are maybe days on the job, you will line yourself up on this side of the room, and then it will go gradually longer and longer until we're down to the people that are decades in, maybe should have retired years ago, and are just hanging on because their bosses are desperate. So if that is you, you're going to end up on that side of the room, and everybody will be in between. So you're going to have to talk to your neighbor to figure out who's who, and then we'll pass a microphone, and you will say your name, your role, and your state, and your length of service. And for virtual, this is the same thing we're going to do, but through chat, and then Cindy and Laura are going to keep it moving if the popcorn responses die down. So we're going to get you up out of your seats and go. Doing? We good?
Terry, you ready?
We're ready. The room is ready. We're going to start with the room. And then when we're done with the room, we're going to hear from our virtual spokespeople. Okay.
Hello, from Savannah from Montana, and I've been here 9 weeks and 2 days.
You can say your role and maybe your state, but I think we heard Montana, so.
Hi, I'm Kara Crawford. I'm the new Utah State Librarian, and I'm on floor. Hi, my name is Georgia, and I'm from Florida. I've been the LSTA coordinator for about 4.5 months.
Hello, everyone. My name is from Arizona. At roughly 9
Alexander Sanders. I'm here to get this microphone. I'm Alexander Sanders. I'm from South Carolina. I'm the LST coordinator there, and I started in April 2022, so approximately 2-ish years and 5 months, possibly. Hello.
I'm Ray Morley. I'm the State Librarian of Kansas, and I've been there about 2 years in Florence.
Hi, I'm Jeff Regensberger with the State Library of Ohio. I'm the LSTA coordinator there, and I've been in that position since August of 22.
Hi, I'm Amanda Young from California, and I've been the LSTA coordinator since January 22.
Hi, I'm Laurel Seaton. I'm with the North Dakota State Library. I've been with them for almost 3 years, and I serve as their fiscal director. My name is Tara McClellan. I'm the financial director for the Oklahoma Department of Libraries, and that includes LSTA, and I have been doing that since August of 2021.
Hi, my name is Kate Inky, and I'm the Grants and Community Education Coordinator for the Alaska State Library, and I've been there since December 2021.
Hi, I'm Mr. Correa. I'm driving this English. Now is operation manager in Program Library in Puerto Rico, Department of Education. 2-year, maybe, coordinator. Yes. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Erin McCormick. I'm the manager of grants and accreditation and LST coordinator and all that stuff. Been there to that role since December of 2019.
I'm Alice Smith from Kansas, and I'm also the LSTA coordinator for the 5 years in November. This is starting pre-pandemic career here, and also a whole bunch of other stuff too.
I'm Jeanette Schaefer from the Vermont Department of Libraries. I am the Assistant State Librarian for Library Advancement Development to some of you folks, and also the LSTA coordinator, and I started in November 2019.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Grow. I'm with the Connecticut State Library. I'm the LST coordinator, the E-rate coordinator, the digital inclusion specialist, and other things. We're a small library, and this is my 5th year.
I'm Wendy Copeland. I'm currently the Director of Finance and Grants at the South Carolina State Library, and I've been with the State Library about 6 years.
I'm Jennifer Chilton. I'm the Arkansas State Librarian. I've never been an LSTA coordinator, but I've become anyway, so I'm in like my second role, but I've been at the Arkansas State Library for just a little over 6 years.
Hi, I'm Jessica Otto from Wyoming State Library. I've been at the Wyoming State Library for 6 years, but I've only been an LSTA coordinator for a little over a year and a half.
Hey, I'm Mary Rainey from the Maryland State Library Agency, and I started on Pi Day of 2018.
I'm Angela Fox. I'm from the Indiana State Library. I've been here just over 7 years, and I am the LSTA coordinator and the CPA coordinator.
I'm Nicolette Buffoni. I am the Library Development Manager and LSTA Coordinator for Rhode Island, and I've been there for about 7 years.
Good morning, I'm Rebecca Camp from the Montana State Library. I've been there 7 years, and I'm the data coordinator.
I'm Lindsay Forrest. I'm from Massachusetts. My official title is Project Management and Grant Specialist, and for the last 2 years, I've also been the LSTA coordinator.
I'm Pepper Prince, State Library of North Carolina. I'm the LSTA coordinator, and I've been here for almost 9 years, so next year I get longevity pay.
Hi, I'm Ben Miller. I am the Director of Library Services for the Department of Public Instruction right here in Wisconsin. And I've been in the State Library for 9 years and 2 months.
Sue and Jones, LSTA coordinator for Nevada, and I have been at the State Library for 9 years and 6 months.
Lynn Burris, I'm with the State of Mississippi and Mississippi Library Division, with Administrative Services Director at State Grants and Finance Board. And I will be continuing
I'm Jennifer Lena, the Deputy Executive Director of the Mississippi Library Commission. I've been at the Library Commission for 14 years, and 10 years as the LSTA coordinator as well.
Hi, I'm Kim Armentrout from Virginia. I am the LSTA coordinator, the SDC, and the state aid administrator.
Hi, I'm Brenda Coleman from South Coast State Library. I've been with the State Library for 15 years as Access and Development Services Manager and LSTA coordinator going on 4 years.
Hi, I'm Denise Lyons, and I'm the State Librarian Commissioner of the Department of Libraries and Archives. I've only been there a year and a half, but I was with the South Carolina State Library for 14 years.
Hi, I'm Sherry Schaefer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer in New Jersey, which includes our council financial, and I've been here for 16 years. I cannot believe I'm this morning.
Hi, I'm Karen Rich from the Library of Michigan. I've been at the State Library for 25 years, 20 as the LSTA coordinator in grants department, and then also the school approaching the
Okay, the room did it. Good job. You are all allowed to go back to your tables. And as you do, we're going to hear from the virtual side about who is in the virtual room. So Cindy's got the mic. Here we go. Well done.
Brian in Indiana is 3 months, was also a newer person. We heard 1 year, 4 months from another Wisconsin staffer. We've heard 23 years, 30 years from the great Karen Egan in Illinois, 27 years in Tennessee, 16 years in Indiana. My dear friend Debbie Hall has 38 years, 20 years in Colorado, and 4 years in California. There's a huge California contingency online, so I cannot keep track of all those folks. But as far as I can tell, Debbie Hall wins.
Debbie Hall wins. You heard it here. Debbie Hall wins. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And if you notice the IMLS table was abstaining, it's because we're going to introduce them throughout the course of the conference. So don't worry, you're going to get to know them too. We're going to move on. I'm going to make up a little timing ground because I got the next 2 sets of slides. So don't worry, you're still going to get to your break at 10:15. But we'd like to start with the fonts, because why not? We're here in Milwaukee where Happy Days was set, so we thought no better way than to characterize the way we feel about the program right now compared to a couple years ago. These are definitely the happy days for us programmatically, and we hope you'll agree based on some positive developments that we're going to share here. So first among those, last year when we were in Seattle in March, we tried for the first time to interview some of you with videos. They were wonderful. Some of your faces are here in the room that are in these videos, so if you haven't seen them, be sure to check them out. We also showcased your good work this year through our annual performance report, which is not the most exciting read, but we try to jazz it up with your fun projects, so your work is in there too. And then if you want to see all the work across the land, it is in the State Program Report Public View from 2022. And these slides are online if you haven't already seen them, and you can link to all the things there. Okay, in really exciting news, we, during the pandemic, asked a lot of you, especially in terms of what you were reporting into the State Program Report. You can see from this slide that during the ARPA reporting year, 2021, the amount of projects reported effectively doubled. It had already ballooned during the CARES Act. This should not surprise you, but the happy news is that when we got back to the basics with 2022 reporting this year, we're back to a manageable size of projects. And not only did you get back to the benchmark year of 2019 before the pandemic, you actually condensed yourselves a little, so you got even more efficient with your reporting. And we actually had 3 more entities represented in 2022 than we did in 2019, because Micronesia and Palau and the other one, oh my gosh, Madison. Marshall Islands, thank you, were not represented in 2019, but were represented in 2022. So good work, everyone. We're back to the happy place where we don't have quite as much to report in the SPR. We also, during the pandemic, had to do some virtual site visits, and that was not our happiest time. We are so happy that the program officers have been able to go out in person to you the last few years, and we rotate the groups of states that we see, and this is what's coming in 2025. So if you're on the slide and you're seeing it for the first time and you're starting to panic a little, don't worry. We're going to give you a lot of lead time, but we like to preview it at this conference in the fall so that when you get the materials in the winter, you're not surprised, and then you can plan for a wonderful site visit in the spring or the summer. These are generally like 2 to 3 day visits. We find them extremely valuable, and we hope that you do too. How many of you were here in 2022 when those 5-year plans got submitted? I know there's a handful, at least, maybe not as many, maybe half the room, maybe even less. Anyway, good on you. That was a lot of work that year. But what I'm here to tell you is that all of us at Grants to States were here that year, and based on what we saw when the plans were coming in the door, and we were approving them and sending feedback back, we thought to ourselves, there are some things we could definitely clarify to make this easier on the states the next time around. And with any government document where we ask you to do stuff, it has to go through a 3-year approval cycle. And we hit that mark last year where the Office of Management and Budget, which is our bosses, they work for the White House, they have to review our stuff. So we took the opportunity to just clarify the 5-year plan guidelines. The substance has not really changed. We just wanted to make things clearer, and we took a pass at formatting it in a little bit of a more straightforward way as well. And the really good news is that you don't even really have to think about this for another couple of years, because your next 5-year plans aren't due until 2027. Yay. All right, we've been in close communication with our finance office at IMLS about the administrative burden that is involved with these fun reports called the quarterly grant accrual reports. And many of you, if you are not intimately in finance, may not even know what these are, but your finance people are submitting these to us. And the next report, because they're quarterly, is due October 4th, so it's just coming up in a few weeks. We are hoping to get 100% of the states reporting on this for October 4th. So we want to finish strong with fiscal 24, but thereafter, our finance team has agreed that they can look at a process modification for how we calculate these accruals back at the ranch. It goes right over my head, but they know exactly what they need to do with this stuff. And they said, as soon as we have a chance to talk to the auditors at IMLS, we can give the states a green light about how this is going to go going forward. So I can't share any details with you today, but I can say it's going to be a lighter lift. That is for sure. And so finish strong October 4th, wait for our announcement in the fall, and we promise you a little bit of an eased administrative burden with these reports going forward. We also have a new director of our Office of Grants Policy and Management. And over the summer, you may not be making payment requests through our EGMS system, but somebody at your state is. And our form for those payments changed a little bit, so the instructions on this slide are updated from last year. We shared the same slide last year, but the instructions are a little different. Everything's been streamlined, made more efficient. And last year we said our guideline would be no more than 2 drawdowns per month, but in conversation with some of you and your finance people and our finance people, we said, okay, we see that there's a case here for you to have 1 a week. And so that has changed to some degree, and if you need to make 4 or 5 payment requests per month, we will honor that. We put a lot of thought into the next 2 days. We're thinking of this as a back to basics kind of year. We don't have to talk about 5-year evaluations. We don't have to talk about 5-year plans. So we're in the sweet spot where we can do sort of the things you always want to hear about, like allowable costs. So it's coming. And we are also in the wonderful year of having already talked to you a few years about the CARES ARPA experience, and our evaluation team is going to share now what those findings actually look like. We are so excited to share this with you. The report has not been published. You're getting the sneak peek of things to come. And we are so honored to have in person, and I see you're standing in the back, our acting IMLS director, Cindy Landrum, to address all of you. Yay! She addressed you last year virtually, but this is the first time she's been here in person. So we're super excited to have her. And a number of you, states, also raised your hand when we said, would you be available to present with us? And you said, yes, I would. So thank you, and we will hear from you tomorrow. We're super excited about that. In terms of logistics, we have, for the folks in the room, a paper survey that we would like you to fill out. We take this very seriously every year. We also have a URL that the virtual folks will be able to use, and we'll have a dedicated time tomorrow at the end of the day where we will sit and say, now you fill out this survey. But if you have to leave a little early in the day, I just want you to know that we'll be collecting the surveys at the registration table. So as soon as you're done with yours, you just drop it off there. And like I said, we listen to you. We try to make iterative improvements. For example, no Seattle Hills this year. You're welcome. And we do try to make adjustments based on your preferences that we hear in the survey. So please be honest and tell us what you think. For those of you in the room, we also have an in-person networking bingo card, and this is, there's a lot of new people here. We want to give you an excuse to walk up to somebody, a total stranger, and say, hey, do you do this thing on the bingo card? So it's just a way for you to get to know each other a little bit better. And we're doing blackout bingo, like whole card has to be filled out. But if you do that, you can turn it into the registration table, and if you're among the earliest of the submissions, we might have a little something for you tomorrow. So incentivizing it. If you're going to participate in the gift exchange, which the mentors have lovingly put together again this year, and by the way, the mentors this year also have a fabulous mentor banner on their name tags, so they are easily identifiable. But we have a table with gifts at the back of the room, and we'd ask you to bring those by the end of lunch, which is 1:30. We're reviving 2 things we've done in the past as well, which is the peer-to-peer appreciation wall. This is for you to shout out each other. There are sticky notes at your table and pens, and you can just write your little kudos on there and slap them on the wall, and it'll be something that we revisit tomorrow as a group. This is something the virtual folks can do as well. You just chat in to Cindy and Laura if you've got an appreciation you want them to record and put over on the wall, and they will do that for you. Same with the parking lot. It's often the case that we do kind of a flyby of our content, and we don't have time for in-depth questions or questions that are very specific to your state. But we still want to hear them, so you can put them on sticky notes on the parking lot wall, and we'll see if we can revisit some of them tomorrow. And if not, we will take them back to the ranch and be sure to get answers to you. We have a lot of acronyms we're going to be slinging around, so if you are not super familiar with them or didn't attend the online orientation last week, we did post our handout for that, and that has a whole list of things like SPR, MOE, LSTA, so they're all there for your viewing pleasure. And it wouldn't be a Grants to States conference without a theme. This year we took a general inspiration from our locale. We have at least 3 resident cheeseheads at IMLS, so we're super excited about this. It is sure to be our cheesiest year yet. I don't ever like to wait until the very end of the conference when everybody's trying to get on a plane to say thank you to people. So I'm going to do a little bit of it now. We have meeting planners that we contract with for this conference. We don't do this ourselves. We're not capable of this ourselves. So thank God for Matt Burdetsky and for Steph Hines, who get you these beautiful spaces and make sure you have powder strips on your table and get you here on your flights and do all the things that are really, truly important for having an in-person meeting and a virtual meeting. Matt is currently running the Zoom room like a champ, so thank you, Capital Meeting Planning. And similarly, we have just this army of other folks helping us, the interpreters, the tech staff, who I've been informed are the best in Wisconsin. So you should just know, here they are, the best in Wisconsin. And of course, all the hotel folks that are making our stay special, including that dog. Dogs, multiple. I'm going to thank my colleagues from Grants to States a little more profusely throughout other segments of the program, and same with our Office of Research and Evaluation staff. But I will just say here that ORE is a co-sponsor of this conference. We are jointly partners in this endeavor, and we could not do this without them. We're so grateful. I want to thank again in advance those of you that said, yes, I will present tomorrow. I want to thank Ben Miller for getting the Dan out visits together. That was so cool. Our mentors for putting the networking event together, and all of you for just taking time away from your jobs. We know this is a sacrifice, and we feel like it's a really important use of your time. So we're going to try to make the best of it for you, but thank you for being here. Okay, with that, we're probably at one of those moments where you might have questions, but I'm going to say put it in the parking lot because we got to keep moving. So we're going to go right into the content of the day, and if you're looking at this going, wow, this sounds super boring, I'm going to try to keep it moving, I promise. This is one of those interactive sessions. But the truth is, some of us have been waiting with bated breath for these regulatory updates that come every so often, and now is the time. So we, last fall, some of the previews of coming attractions were unveiled, and some of you might have even responded to the public comment period about these regs that dictate what happens in the grants arena in the federal sector. And now, in April, we were able to see what those actual changes were going to be, and we've heard that this coming change is October 1st, just a few weeks from today. So it's been a long tail of stuff coming at us, and our legal team and our grants administration team have been furiously digesting this material. It is hundreds and hundreds of pages, and we said what would really be helpful to the states is if you could just give them the most pertinent information in those hundreds of pages that they, as states, and pass-through entities, which is what you do when you take our money and you redistribute it out. So that is a term of art that you will hear more. We want to know what the states and pass-throughs really need to pay attention to, because there's a lot in there that they don't. So that is what you're going to get in this next section. And we did this sort of version of things in 2021 when the conference was virtual. Some of you may remember Cam Trowbridge, our Associate General Counsel. He did a top 10, which we thought was a very helpful format, so that's been our North Star going forward. I will say right off the bat, there was so much this round that at a certain point we were like, this is not going to be a top 10. It's like a 30-page handout. I'm not going to go through all 30 pages, but we've linked it for you, and we're going to try to just give you a little appetizer version of it today and dive deeper into it later in the fall. So I want to say at the outset, thank you to our colleagues back at the ranch who made this possible. It was Julie Balutis, our director of the grants office, Cam Trowbridge, our acting general counsel, and Santana Jackson, who is also in the office of general counsel, and did a huge lift on this work, and they have allowed me to bring it to you today in the form that you're going to see. So first of all, what are we talking about? This set of regs comes by a number of different names. OMB, as I mentioned, is our Office of Management and Government, Office of Management and Budget. They effectively work for the White House, and it is their set of regs that they give to all of the grant-making agencies across government, including us. So these are somewhat generic. They are not specific to libraries. We often call it internally the Uniform Guidance. That's another title it goes by, and it comes from the Code of Federal Regulations. So it's Title 2. You'll often hear us say 2 CFR 200. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about this set of regs. And if you're still scratching your head because that's not familiar to you, here's some plain language things that it covers. It does cover allowable costs. It covers things like the unique entity identifiers that everybody that receives federal funds has to go into sam.gov and get. It includes things like reporting the subawards through the FFATA and FSRS.gov system, and it includes things like the audits. So as I said, this is a large set of updates. It's our largest since 10 years ago. Like our pass at the 5-year guidelines, what OMB was really trying to do with this was clarify, make it more plain language, add some nuances to things that were not clear, and it is going into effect October 1st. However, if you take nothing else away from this session, I want you to take away this. Nothing in your immediate grant realm is going to change because this will not apply until we issue the 2025 awards. And for those of you that have been around the block, you know that doesn't happen until January at the earliest, and sometimes into the months of spring. So you do have some time, and nothing that we're going to go over today is taking immediate effect for you, okay? So your 24 awards, your 23 awards that are still open, those are all following the prior guidance. So you have some time. We've got the handout that I previewed. It's online. We would very much like you to take a look at this. 30 pages sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to the, 800 pages that OMB descended to us. So please take a look. It is the essential, crucial stuff for you. And we are going to dedicate the November 7th Zoom meeting that is normally for LSTA coordinators to just talk shop amongst themselves. But we're going to take that over. And our grants colleagues that I mentioned in the Office of Grants Management and Policy and the Office of General Counsel are going to come on board and be there in sort of an open forum to answer any questions you might have. So please save that date, and we will email this all out again so that everybody's aware of this. And it's a wide call. Anybody in an SLA can attend this. The Electronic Code of Federal Regulations is also a great resource. Not only on October 1st will it have the new guidance that is coming out, but you can go back in time and say, I want to see the historic version that currently applies to me. And there is a search tool, and baby, I use this all the time. So I hope that you will get familiar with this tool and start using it too. And if you want to see the sort of play-by-play revisions that OMB gave us, they are linked to this slide as well. Okay, so how we're going to do the next segment is it's like pop quiz time, and we have no expectation that any of you know anything about this. The baseline is that we're all here kind of hearing it for the first time. That is okay. These are just your best guesses because we have found this is a good way to solidify the learning. So it's going to be some multiple choice questions, some true or false questions, and if you're in the room, you're just going to put your hands in the air like a great Packer fan, and if you're in the virtual room, you're going to just chat in your answers, and we're just going to go through about 9 questions to help give you a flavor of what's changing. So here we go. First question. Which of the following amounts in these new regs are going to change? the definition of equipment, which is currently set at $5,000, the single audit threshold, which is $750,000, modified total direct costs for subawards, currently $25,000, the de minimis indirect cost rate, currently 10%, or none of the above or all of the above. So those are your choices. So, and don't worry, if this is a word scramble for you, we're going to hit almost every single one of these concepts over the later part of the conference content. We will get to this stuff. So who thinks the answer is A? Okay, got a couple takers. Who thinks the answer is B? Oh, nice. Our tech team is voting. Okay. Who thinks our answer is C? Who thinks it's D? How about E? None of the above. How about F? All of the above. We have lots in the hands in the room for that, and that is the answer. All of those amounts are changing. Equipment is probably most pertinent to you. That is going from $5,000 to $10,000, which big threshold leap doubles it. Single audit thresholds going up to $1 million. The modified total direct costs for subawards up to $50,000, and the de minimis indirect cost rate, which is something your subrecipients are eligible for, is going up to 15%. So all of these are changing, but not until your 25 grant awards. Okay, next question. True or false? IMLS prior approval for equipment will no longer be required. So say you want a book bike, maybe a Harley Davidson from up the road in Milwaukee. Will you have to write to IMLS and say, I want to purchase this Harley Davidson. Here's how much it costs. So who thinks this is true? You will no longer have to ask us for permission. There's a believer. We've got some hopeful believers. Who thinks this is false? There's a lot of hands in the room for the false, and sad faces. That is the answer. It is false. You're still going to need to submit prior approval requests. The good news is the threshold's going up, so perhaps you won't submit as many of them. And you submit those through eGMS Reach for you and your subrecipients. Key point. Okay, next question. True or false, cybersecurity is a new requirement under internal controls, because we all need a good defense, like the Packers, with our cybersecurity apparatuses. So who thinks, true, this is going to be a new requirement? Hands in the air. There's quite a few hands, quite a few hands. Who thinks this is false? There's a believer. I know, all of this is like, oh, if only. Okay. The actual answer, it is true. So you will need to make sure that cybersecurity is somehow incorporated in your current policies for internal controls. But the silver lining here is that OMB specifically called it out as an allowable cost. So you can use grant dollars to defray this. Next question. Okay, so the OMB, Office of Management and Budget, clarified that individuals attending trainings or conferences, and key point, those who are not responsible for implementing the award, but if they're traveling to conferences, they can receive per diem, A, B, temporary dependent care costs, C, alcohol paid for with federal funds, D, only A and B, or E, none of the above. Who thinks it's A? Okay. Who thinks it's B? Who thinks it's C? A believer or two. Who thinks it's D, only A and B? Quite a few hands for that one. Who thinks it's E, none of the above? Couple takers. Okay. The actual answer is only A and B. So per diem may not be surprising to you because conference attendees can receive per diems. Temporary dependent care costs is an exciting development. We've been hearing for years that this would be helpful, and it was never really spelled out in the regs, so now it is. And the people that would be eligible for this, there's some examples of those kinds of people on the slides. Conference attendees might be the flavor that you most often get. So take note. Okay. Question 5. There's a new priority to purchase products and services that A, can be reused, refurbished, or recycled, B, are bio-based, C, are energy and water efficient, D, all of the above, or E, none of the above. Who thinks it's A? Who thinks it's B? Who thinks it's C? I'm going rapidly because there's no hands. Who thinks it's D? Many more hands. Who thinks it's E? None of the above. Well, y'all are right. It is all of the above. So the language around this is to the greatest extent practicable and consistent with law. So this is not a, you shall only purchase these things. But please take note that this is a priority and it is for the good of the planet. So we want all the recycled, sustainable, bio-based things to be part of our repertoire. Okay, question 6. True or false, OMB added a requirement that employees of recipients and subrecipients be informed of whistleblower rights and protections in writing. This is, if you see something, say something. This is the, you're going to be protected. There's not going to be reprisals. So this is a true or false question. Who thinks it's true? Some hands in the air. Who thinks it's false? I see no hands. It is, in fact, true. Although whistleblower protections have been already invoked in the regs, and that is not super new, the idea that you have to have something in writing is a new call out. So this will be something that if you don't have it already, you'll want to figure out a way to incorporate it. I'm not sure it has to be long. It just has to be in writing. Okay, question 7. OMB clarified that unique entity identifiers, or UEIs, must be obtained for A, subrecipients, B, second-tier subrecipients, C, contractors, D, all of the above, or E, none of the above. And I just want to say the image on this slide is the Milwaukee Tools contractor. And those folks are in the building. They have a conference right now, which I think is wild. So if you see the red shirt people, that's them. Who thinks it's A? Just subrecipients. Who thinks it's B? Just sub-tiers, subrecipients. No hands for that one. Who thinks it's C? Contractors. D, all of the above. Quite a few hands. E, none of the above. Okay, well the answer is A. You only have to get these numbers now for subrecipients, and this was another very confusing thing that some people had asked, like, oh my gosh, do I have to get these numbers for my contractors? Well, OMB has definitively put down in writing, no, you do not. And if you subgrant and then your subrecipients sort of do something with the money once again, they don't have to get UEIs for those people either. And the process is a little onerous, but they don't have to get a full registration. Just as a reminder, there is kind of a shortcut version to this to obtain a UEI in sam.gov. Okay, true or false? OMB clarified that if a potential subrecipient is excluded or disqualified from receiving federal funds, the responsibility rests on them to disclose it to you, the pass-through entity. Who thinks this is true? A few tentative hands. Who thinks this is false? A few more hands. Well, I'm sad to say this is false. The responsibility rests on you as the pass-throughs to do this due diligence, and OMB is now specifying that in writing. So a possible verification method for this is just using the search function in sam.gov. It's something that we already do at IMLS, and some of you may already do it yourselves, and that would flag with an excluded mark of shame that this entity shall not receive federal funds. So you have tools at your disposal for this. Okay, question 9. OMB added a certification statement for subrecipients that must be submitted when they A, apply for funds from you, B, request payments from you, C, submit final reports to you, D, all of the above, or E, none of the above. So who thinks it's A, applying for funds? C, hand. Requesting payment, B, couple of hands. C, submitting final financial reports, more hands. D, all of the above, some tentative hands. E, none of the above. Okay, the answer is D, all of the above. This is the statement, my friends. So if you are not incorporating this already in any way, know that this is going to have to be a new part of your process, that when people are applying for funds, requesting funds, and submitting reports to you, they need to certify on this statement every single time. All right. We're coming to the end here. That was just the quick high-level digest of things to come, but you have an on-ramp, just like this lovely Milwaukee skyline of yore. This is not happening until we issue your fiscal 25 awards. So if you need to go back to the ranch, huddle with your people, get some stuff put down in writing, you've got the time. And remember that we're going to have that open forum on November 7th. So if you start to look through the handout that they put together for you and decide, ooh, there's some things that we didn't cover in that pop quiz format, I want to know more about that. This is the place to bring all your questions and clarifications. We've got the ECFR, we've got the Federal Register notice, and you've got a ton of resources at your disposal, including your wonderful program officers. So as you start to have questions about this, please let us know. We want to be in dialogue with you about this. We want to help you, be resources to you. We know this is a big change, but that you were all up for it, and that you, many of you have just wonderful internal controls and policies and procedures already. So hopefully this will not represent a huge, huge lift. With that, we're just a few minutes before the break. I'm going to see, because we have a few minutes, was there anything in that content that you immediately had a question about? We do have a floating mic. Any initial clarifications? Otherwise, we can say parking lot is open for business.
Just an observation from the virtual side of things. Question 7 and question 9 were a bit of a stumper. So you
Ooh.
and the certifications. Just an observation. However,
Yes.
did great.
Good job, virtual folks. Thanks for playing along. Okay. Is there another? Oh, there is a hand. We have a hand from Jeanette.
Quick question about the cybersecurity requirement. That does
Sure.
apply to sub-grantees, correct?
I'm going to go back to that slide and see what it reads. I think it's your internal controls as the SLAA. I could tell you what my interpretation is. I almost want to have our legal and grants people back me up. My strong suspicion is that is you. That is you, the SLAA, not so much your subrecipients.
That would be wonderful if that was the answer.
Okay, we'll
Thank
see
you.
if we can get a firmer answer on that. Thanks, Jeanette.
And then asking for friends, so the family care stipend or whatever reimbursement, not for pets, right?
I'm not sure I even heard that full question. What was the first part of it?
So the new financial support when you travel to the conference.
Oh, yes. That was also my interpretation of it. I think that's something let's ask our legal colleagues about. If you are receiving the money and the ones organizing the conference, then I think, no, you would not be eligible for the dependent care that's come through with this. Hopefully you have other, sorry, I'm not finding that slide at the moment. Hopefully you have other ways of compensating yourself, like through salary support, through incidentals, but let's be sure to clarify, oh, there it is. Let's be sure to clarify this one, because I also am interpreting this that most of you in the room as the SLA organizers of your conferences would not be receiving these benefits. Oh, pets as dependent care? Oh, thank you. I'm really having trouble hearing, apparently. Okay. We can also clarify what dependent care means in that open forum. How about that? Okay. Well, I want to make sure you all get to break. You have earned it. And we have a 90-minute session coming up for one of the things that you all ask us to help you with all the time. So this is the year. Every year we look at your conference feedback and see topics I would have liked to seen covered, and allowable cost shows up. Like I said, we can only do this about once every 5 years. And I'm so excited about the thought and creativity that the program officers put into this session to make it fun and engaging. This also gives me a chance to introduce our 3 wonderful, amazing program officers at IMLS with portfolios of states, Dennis, Cindy, and Madison. They each approach their work in slightly different ways, but they're constantly in communication with each other so that we know that the messaging is consistent across them. That is no small feat. That takes a lot of work, and they do it so well. They're a complete joy to work with. Everybody at IMLS tells me, God, I love your team. They're so fun. And I'm telling you, the nucleus of that is like standing up here at the stage right now. This is it. This is the fun factory right here. We know that some of you, speaking of fun, there's a disparaging phrase that goes around that we have to be the fun police. And we always have to tell people no. And we know that that gets put on you, and it gets put on us too. But if ever there were a grant police that could still bring the fun, it's right here. So I'm really excited that they're getting to present this topic, which is the fun police topic, if you didn't know. This is what you can and cannot do. And sometimes it's hard. But I want to particularly acknowledge Madison Bowles for putting this presentation set of slides together and distilling it, and then getting her colleagues on board. It's a lot of work. So with that, our program officers.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry, for that great introduction. And yes, this is an evergreen topic that we try to cover as much as we can. There's always questions coming in to us as program officers, and we want to have the most fun we can in this session. So we realized this is an hour and a half full of a lot of information that we're going to be throwing at you. So we do have some time about halfway through to regroup, have you guys talk amongst yourselves and ask questions. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. All right, so the basic overview of the session is we're first going to do a refresher on the legislation and regulations. We have that IMLS statute that established us as an agency, and then we will go through the 2 CFR Part 200 general cost principles, the session that Terry mentioned previously on the details of those. We'll then discuss some common unallowable costs, and we've developed some scenarios to show you how we typically see those coming in. Then we have our trustee framework for justifying a certain cost that we want to pass on to you. Then we'll talk about direct costs versus indirect costs. And finally, other considerations to make when you're trying to figure out if a cost is reasonable and necessary for a certain project. So first, we have the order of precedent in the laws that govern our work. The first is the U.S. Constitution, and the second is those federal laws, the 20 U.S. Code 9101, which is the statute, as I said, established us as an agency. That includes the Library Services and Technology Act, or LSTA. That also includes 2 CFR 200, Uniform Grants Guidance, and then after those federal regulations and laws, we have state laws that you will want to be aware of when you're doing your work. And note that the federal laws do precede the state laws. So now I'm going to get into the federal laws first. So the Museum Service and Technology Act is one of two pieces of congressional legislation that is required for us to make awards to you. The second part of that is the legislation that is the annual appropriation that happens every year and decides how much money we can grant out each year. Although it's not outlined here, there are other pieces of congressional legislation that affect your work. Those are things like national policy requirements, so non-discrimination standards, environmental requirements, and those are always compiled in the annual grant assurances that your authorized official or state librarian signs every single time we issue an award. The other legislation that Congress passes for us, and this could happen at any time, that affects our work are things like the National Museum of African American History and Culture Act, some special initiatives that come through Congress. That one in particular not only established the museum, the Smithsonian Museum on the Mall, but it also established a grant program that IMLS runs. So with each new Congress comes some new priorities that may affect our work. Then we have the regulations that are not done by Congress. As Terry mentioned, we have the Office of Management and Budget that effectively comes from the president, and they are responsible for those uniform grant guidance, Code of Federal Regulations, 2 CFR Part 200, so many names. These are regulations that all federal grants have to follow. So it doesn't matter if the money is being used by a museum or a library, anyone utilizing federal funds has to follow the uniform grants guidance. And Dennis is going to talk about the grants guidance in a few minutes. So I'm going to continue with the statute. The statute does have definitions for these terms that are listed on the slides. Now, note that these definitions are not strictly aligned with eligibility. States, what the statute states is states, SLAAs, determine eligibility for your grant programs. And we remember that the federal laws preclude the state laws, so we are officially, the federal government, is officially delegating that eligibility determination to you. Now, because IMLS statute defines state to include the territories, the freely associated states, and Washington, D.C., we actually give out 59 annual awards every year. So even though some of those aren't states in the official sense, when it comes to the statute, we consider them all states. So we have these 12 LSTA purposes and priorities that broadly cover library services and basically outline how the grant funds should be used. There are also 8 additional ones for the LSTA, the Grants and States program. These are things that you should be aware of when you're utilizing our funding, like resource sharing, library workforce, prioritizing underserved audiences, but you probably don't think about these very much, and that's okay, because once every 5 years, when you do your 5-year plan, we require you to crosswalk these priorities to your goals. So at any given moment, you are, when we connect you to the goals, when you're connecting to the goals, you are fulfilling the purposes and priorities of LSTA. So with the statute, there's other practical implications of it. As I mentioned, everything funded with LSTA must come back to your 5-year plan. If you can't connect it to your 5-year plan, it is unallowable. Construction, as we all know, unfortunately, is unallowable. And what does that mean exactly? It means no tearing down walls, no laying fiber or pouring concrete, no installing permanent structures. If you ask yourself, could I move it if I needed to? And the answer is no, it's probably unallowable. And we've adjusted the definition of how we interpret construction over the years, and we've allowed some things. Adjusting HVAC units has become an allowable cost recently. Although if you have an extensive installation, you probably want to separate the installation costs and not pay for those with federal funds, and also not include those as match costs. Other things that could border on interpreting as construction could be privacy pod installation, bookmobile retrofits, hearing loop wiring, self-service lockers. Those are things that are allowable in the program. We do not consider those construction. Also, finally, you must comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act, which means if you're using LSTA funds to purchase materials that have access to the internet, there must be a filter on that internet. And finally, we have state laws. Besides the federal laws that I just talked about, you probably have your own laws in your state that governs your library work. This is an example of laws in this great state of Ohio. What's up, Ohio? And they pertain to libraries, and you want to be mindful of those as you're developing and making awards on your program. Sometimes we'll see best practices that the state has designated in addition to the federal regulations, and LST coordinators will come to us about maybe a particular unallowable cost that they see in their handbook, or maybe a certain eligibility requirement, and ask us if that's a state law or a federal law. And sometimes it is a state law. So it's good to know the difference of where the regulations and the best practices are coming from. Now we have our first scenario on grant eligibility.
Hopefully this is working. Oh, great. I am the LSTA coordinator in the state of East Asiago. The West Cheeseter Middle School Library wants to know if they are eligible for grant funds. Mainly, they need funds to replace the carpet.
That's a great question, LSTA coordinator. Based on the legislation, it is up to you as the SLAA of East Asiago to determine that the middle school library is generally eligible for LSTA funds. If you consider a school library a library and a priority, you could fund them. However, replacing carpet is not a generally allowable cost. With that type of project is very important for a library. It sounds like construction, and so based on the 2 CFR 200 requirements and the IMLS statute, that is unallowable. Funds must be programmatic in nature and connect back to your five-year plan.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, Madison, while you're here, I work at the SLAA in the state of New Swissia. You know that because you're my program officer. There is a nonprofit that promotes early literacy in my community of Camembert County. Can I fund this organization with an LSTA subaward?
This is a great question, and it can get a little bit of a slippery slope. Yes, SLAAs can determine eligibility and could say a nonprofit could receive IMLS funds. But you have to make sure that their work is related to libraries and connects to your goals in your 5-year plan. Their case could be strengthened if they work with the library as a partner. You could fund their project.
Thanks so much. Let's see. Okay, I'm a program officer again, just to keep it clear. And I'm going to talk about the 2 CFR 200, and I hope that by the time we finish the conference, that everybody will have no confusion as to what 2 CFR means, 2 CFR 200, Code of Federal Regulations. I can say personally, doing this now for 8 years, I'm finally like, okay, yes, I understand that they are vital and living and helpful to refer to, and not nearly as intimidating as I once thought. You just have to read it again and again and again. And that's what we'll do here. We'll talk about it again and again and again. So, as we've discussed for a good deal of this morning in various presentations, 2 CFR Part 200 specifically, again, is not specific to grants to states. It's requirements for all federal grants. And it, again, the uniform guidance is there to establish those requirements across the board, consistently related to allowable costs and audit requirements. If some of you have experienced site visits through us, a lot of things that we will say will be, we want to help you be as audit proof as possible, and this is kind of where that fits in. And again, the guiding principle for the 2 CFR in this area is the cost reasonable and necessary? I'm sure you have heard from us in several email responses those terms. They're probably not foreign to you, but this is where this comes from. And again, this is an important one and sometimes can be easily forgotten, is that this guidance governs both the state library's funds, the LSTA, and whatever you record and report as match. So those principles are across the board. And it also includes requirements for pass-through entities, which are, again, as Terry mentioned, that is the kind of official term for your role as a state library. And also, as Terry mentioned, the updates will take effect October 1, but not until your 2025 awards are awarded to you. So again, it breaks down. I just want to show you that clip or a screenshot of how 2 CFR 200 is broken down, and I cannot recommend the eCFR enough. It makes it a lot less intimidating to go through a huge PDF and instead just kind of click on the areas that are of direct relevance to you in any given moment. And as you can see, it breaks it down in these areas. I don't have to read them to you, you can see them. And I just want to also point out the link there to the fact that it is searchable. So if you don't know where to click, just searching a term, it might be broken out in a specific allowable cost category there, under cost principles specifically. Yes, so more statute reference there, but this is basically all under allowability. So, and this is where we get our lovely terms of necessary and reasonable. Under those considerations to make sure that they're consistent. Consistency is key for your federal and your non-federal activities. They expect that you follow generally accepted accounting principles, so they don't go into what those are. They kind of assume that you are following them in accordance with the allowability element. And not to be used for matching requirements for other federal awards, so you can't use LSTA funds as a matching requirement for another federal program. There are very few exceptions, very few, so just assume that you can't do that unless otherwise, like, it's screaming out at you that you can. Adequate documentation is critical. I think as you'll see throughout the day and in our beautifully crafted scenarios that we have written for all of you, that there is definitely case-by-case bases with a lot of allowability. And what really tips it over more often than not into allowability is how well you're able to document your justification. That kind of feeds back into that audit-proof territory where it's like, this may on the surface look like it's not allowable, but because of all of these well-documented reasons, it is. And again, this is a given, but always good to be reminded of that they have to be incurred during the approved budget period, with the exception of closeout costs. So I'm going to go through some of the main categories of common unallowable costs, and then we have some scenarios to kind of bring them to life. And I'm just realizing now, because I have a few, I might not be jumping back and forth. So I think I need just preparing. Actually, I'm a PO. Thank you. Thank you. Behind the curtain stuff, Thank you so much. But first, under entertainment, as a general principle, no parties with LSTA funds. We love a party, but just not funded with LSTA funds. Concerts or alcohol. And if it does not have an educational component, it's a no. So I know probably under this, you can't do a bourbon educational tasting. No alcohol kind of supersedes the education there. I know that's where my brain went. I was like, oh, I can learn with alcohol, but no, it's a little dicey, so we just don't touch that at all. But with the concerts, you can get into a place where, again, well documented and well communicated, where it may have a justifiable educational component. So let's get into one of our scenarios related to entertainment.
I work at the SLAA in the state of Old Gorgonzola. There was an end of summer reading program event at the public library, and they were awarded a sub-grant from us for it. They had various types of programming, and this included a story time with snacks, a Charlie cart demonstration, and they hired the famous local polka band, the Kenosha Kickers. I'm sure you all know them.
Polka King of the Midwest.
All this showed up in their final report to me, and I just put it in the SPR. Is that okay?
Thanks so much for your openness, Madison. Or not Madison, LSTA coordinator. We do have a few issues here, so let's spend some time breaking those down. First of all, with the activities, the hiring of the Kenosha Kickers, unfortunately, was unallowable because they were purely entertainment. The story time is programmatically sound, but the snack would have to serve a programmatic purpose in order for it to be allowable. And it sounds like it was not, so thank you for letting me know. And while the Charlie cart does provide food, in that case, it's a needed material in the program. So that would be considered an allowable cost. Great job. Then we have an issue of internal controls. And I know that we have an ongoing professional relationship, so I feel comfortable telling you of areas of improvement, and I'm grateful for all of that we have built professionally. I can tell you up front about this, but if you, as the state library, saw activities like a band in the project plan and in the final report and did not flag the issue, that unfortunately is an indicator of a lack of your internal monitoring of grant management, which is a requirement based on 2 CFR 200. We bring it direct, because that's just how we roll. But it's important that you monitor how your funds are being spent. So you could be asked to return those funds to IMLS. But again, please keep bringing these to me. Don't hide from me moving forward, please.
Dennis.
Yes.
I'm still working at East Asiago State Library.
Thank you.
The Mascarpone Regional Library receives a sub-award from us, and they want to do a 2-day training and continuing ed workshop for staff. They're located in a rural area, so lunch was provided in the workshop. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Cindy. We generally cite workshop lunches as allowable if there is relevant work being done through the time of lunch, which we affectionately call a working lunch. You mentioned that this is also in a rural area, so these areas are often food deserts, and it is difficult to travel during a workshop to get food. So making the case for providing lunch is strengthened by the fact that you're in a rural area. And that speaks to the adequate documentation that we discussed earlier. Thanks so much, Cindy. Keep holding it down in East Asiago. All right. Now, next category of allowability is, drumroll please, general advertising. So this is a common unallowable cost that we see, and rightfully so. Why wouldn't you want to advertise things? But there, under LSTA and under the Code of Federal Regulations, there's no general advertising or marketing for the library allowed. However, you can advertise an LSTA-funded service, but it should be reported as such with the related project costs in the SPR. So we'd be able to expect to kind of follow the money, if you will, the paper trail of, in the SPR, you have this one project, and we can see how the marketing costs were tied specifically to marketing that particular project. And so, as with several of these slides, for future reference, we have links to these specific areas if you wanted to dig a little more deeply into that. All right, here we go.
So the Mascapone Regional Library came back to me with another project. They are using IMLS funds to put up billboards to promote the library and where it is located. Is this allowable?
Oh, okay. Let's get into this,
Let's do
shall
it.
we? While it is important to let the community in Mascarpone know where your library is and its services, there is nothing specifically funded with LSTA dollars here. So, according to CFR 200, you cannot use IMLS funds to put up these billboards. But so I encouraged you to communicate that back to Mascarpone.
Will do.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I have a question in the great state of Old Gorgonzola. We use IMLS funds for the statewide library catalog. We also use IMLS funds to print bookmarks that promote this service, as well as the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Is that allowable?
So close, Madison. Old Gorgonzola, they'll get it one of these days, for sure. So because the state catalog is LSTA funded, you can use funds to promote that service, and a bookmark would be acceptable. However, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is not funded with LSTA, so you would need to leave that off the bookmark, just to, again, to be sure to look at the source of the funding. Make sure to keep it separate. Thanks so much.
Program Officer Dennis?
Oh, yeah.
I do have another question. One of my subawardees is funding outreach to a specific community. Those who are learning English, have limited English, or who have limited English proficiency. They plan to put out mailers in targeted neighborhoods. Is this allowable?
Thanks so much for that question.
You're so welcome.
That sounds great. I'm very excited for this sub-award. If that is related back to your goals in the 5-year plan, which, as Madison mentioned earlier, those goals already track to the LSTA purposes and priorities, so they are already kind of connected, then it is generally allowable. And there's also specifically in the LSTA purposes and priorities a focus on reaching the underserved. So because that is a targeted population and can be tied to a specific project, that is generally allowable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Next, advocacy, a common unallowable cost. We never hear about this at all. But yes, so to break it down, the kind of highlights of what is not allowable under this area. I know that the word advocacy automatically kind of puts the fear of God in people, but more specifically what is involved in that is no funds that go toward lobbying or lawmakers or contributing to political campaigns. That can obviously be kind of dicey. No funds toward fundraising activities. And no direct costs toward applying for other grants. That would only be under indirect costs, not direct costs. And there is some availability or allowability under general grant writing workshops because that's more general and it's more focused on professional development of like professional skills, but not here's a 5-step program of reaching this specific senator and asking for this specific amount of money. It's entirely different from here's just proposal writing 101 or communication skills in general. All right.
Well, in Old Gorgonzola, we have given out a sub-award to a public library, and they are hosting the annual trustee training. We've hired Laverne and Shirley's library organization to do the training. They're really well recommended. And it turned out that they have a section on advocacy in the trustee training. What do I do with that?
Thanks so much for letting me know so we can work this out together. Trustee training is allowable as it is building capacity, but 2 CFR 200 designates advocacy as outright unallowable. This is a federal law, so we can't make any exceptions. In this instance, you will need to have documentation that shows that the training was prorated, so no IMLS funds were used for the advocacy section. In the case of an audit, it is important that this documentation is clear. And secondly, your SPR report should omit any mention of advocacy, please and thank you.
Program Officer Dennis.
Yes.
The Friends group at Mascarpone Metro Regional Library wants to put on an event and charge money as a fundraiser for the library. Can IMLS funds be used for a speaker for the event?
Oh, good old Mascarpone. I appreciate their enterprising spirit because
As do
they've
I.
really been cranking out a lot of stuff.
I know.
While speaker fees are generally allowable, the context of this particular speaker, the purpose of the speaker is primarily for fundraising, it sounds like. So it does not serve a programmatic purpose beyond that. So that would be considered unallowable. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you.
All right. So, and this is some other not big topic areas, but some maybe like a grab bag of unallowable costs that we see occasionally that would be helpful to point out to you. Costs associated with starting a new organization. Personal professional memberships are not allowed. Institutional memberships are allowable, but not personal ones. Bad debts or funds for services that were not rendered are not allowable. Video surveillance equipment from certain companies, and I do believe we get into that a little bit more later. That sounds very foreboding, and I didn't intend for that to be, but yeah. Look at sam.gov, basically. And furniture that doesn't have any programmatic purpose. And adding to endowments, we cannot fund. You never know when that might come across your desk, so it's good to know that you can't. And any activities that are unrelated to our LSTA purposes and priorities. All right, so we have brought back the framework for justifying a certain cost. And if you have been, I guess if you were on this side of the room, you may remember the debut of this framework in Denver, which was a pile of rocks. And because of rock climbing, and rocks was the theme at the time. So we've graduated to a cheese framework to keep it relevant. And so, but essentially, the principles are still there. You want to start out with the foundation, which is, of course, whatever the award language is indicating, and the annual guidance that is signed off on every year with your award. And of course, those wonderful pieces of legislation we've touched on a little bit today. And then building off of that is more specific areas like our Grants to States manual, which I can't emphasize enough, we do keep updated and accurate. Some of the dates on the documents may look old, but they are still current and relevant, so you can rely on them. Existing cases and prior approval from us is a great, we're talking about like justifying and documentation of allowability. And then finally, at the very top of that cheese is your rationale that helps that you will basically use all the previous components to build and to document effectively. So, now we're going to take a recombobulation breather in honor of the airport that has a designated recombobulation area, which we're very thrilled about. And so, yeah, we just want to spend, oh, this is you, Cindy.
It's all good.
Take about 5 or 10 minutes at your tables just to talk about some of your impressions, any questions that you have maybe experienced practically, any things that you might be confused about that we discussed, and then we'll kind of ask for some of your impressions with the volunteers from the table to share out.
Wonderful. All right. We're going to start. Which side of the room should we start on? Emily, we'll put you to work first. You can start.
Okay.
You can start over here.
Do we have any questions on these? I think this is the south end of the room.
Yeah.
As someone who just took a class on advanced cost principles for 2 CFR 200, I have a million questions, but this is not a training for me.
That's why you're here.
Any examples that you guys came up with that you want to share? I got one.
Hi, Ben Miller. Home field advantage.
No, I'll ask a question. And I don't know the answer to this because I've never had a building program and I'd love to. But would that be eligible for for match funding if it's true construction, like a state-funded program that is just for construction? Is that eligible for match for LSTA or not?
It is not eligible
Yay,
for match.
that's good news.
Yes. That's a great reminder that all of the cost principles and allowable cost information applies to both LSTA funds and your matching funds. So if you have a construction program, and I think some states actually do have funds, use state funds for construction, you can include that in your match.
We
Thanks,
had
Ben.
some of the same questions about furniture and also sometimes the slippery slope with CSLP and what is a hands-on learning versus a prize and a giveaway. So we just kind of went through those things together.
We have a comment over here, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, sorry, just a clarification. So if there's a process unallowable, it does not come towards, obviously, federal money or match, but how about MOE meetings ever?
So MOE is so complicated.
Yeah, it's so complicated.
That's day 2.
Yeah, we talk about MOE tomorrow. Basically, MOE, it probably would not count in MOE because your MOE has to be stable cost categories. So if it's something that is in a stable cost category that contributes to library services, then yes.
So complicated.
Yeah, that big old.
Terry is reaching for the microphone. I
Yeah.
can see her.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, there is a MOE exception category that, like, construction is just a no. So you wouldn't put construction into MOE, but there may be some other nuanced examples. And program officers are here to help you talk through.
We were going to foot race tomorrow, but I win.
So we know that we can't use funding for advocacy, but what if we call it outreach? How to do outreach to your mayor to help solidify the library?
Well, I would say, like, end the sentence earlier. And I don't even not even like a.
But where's
not
the
even-
fine line? Where is the fine line? You know, we get
fine-
questions all the time from directors. You know, how to go talk to your funders and explain the importance. You're not necessarily asking for money. And you are teaching them. Same question would apply to, for instance, we paid ALA for the trustee training.
Right.
So if they log in, there's lots of sessions to choose from.
Right.
That's going to be one. Any open forum that we're paying for subscriptions for, if they log in, advocate's probably going to be a choice in a lot of those different things. We're paying a subscription for the whole thing. So
Right, and that,
it's happening.
I think that is of minimal concern because there is so much other. You can't parse that out. It's like a huge subscription, and there's so many other things that are allowable programming and good education and continuing education for your staff. I think what you could do is have programming. So have some programs that maybe to a targeted audience. And maybe your mayor just observes.
Yeah, right. And also, too, there's a difference between something that is extremely intentionally like, these are your elected officials, this is the website where you can reach out to them, here are their aides, this is what they like to hear, et cetera, and so forth. And this is communication skills, how to tell your story as a librarian, communicating value. Those are just good skills from like a professional development perspective.
And if in the process the elected officials learn
Yeah.
that they need to give more money to continue these great
Look at that.
skills,
Look what
that's
happened.
just the bonus.
Yeah.
One more quick thing I want to place Brenda here. Let's go back to the bookmark for a quick second. If it's half Dolly Parton and half of LSTA program, can you 50-50 it?
Well, I was thinking about what you were mentioning in there about the prorating, and I do wonder if, once again, if it's documented that the cost is sort of split to kind of recognize that you're paying for the portion that is being promoted. And again, this is why these case-by-case scenarios are very much that, because if it was, this is really granular, but if you had the LSTA funded service on one side of the bookmark, right, it's very clear that that's communicating that this is what was funded, and the Dolly Parton's on the other side, and it's like funded entirely separately. That documentation, that cheese, if you will, you could make a strong case as long as you're really above board with these are the efforts that we made to delineate the costs. Right.
So I have I'm sorry.
And you know, what would an auditor say? Like I guess like try to look at it through the eyes of an auditor. Like, would they find that fishy? Some auditors, as some of you know, are really nitpicky. But so it is good to have that documentation.
Yeah. So we have in that case a library who prints an annual or quarterly event thing, but the IMLS portion takes up about 8 pages, and what they do is they take out those pages and prorate it for whatever the 64 pages of, and prorate just that amount, and documents that these are the IMLS portions. Is that?
That would pass muster for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Sounds great. It's very clear. Yeah. Good questions.
Yes.
South side of the room is killing it.
So if you're printing the bookmark, though, don't you still want acknowledgments on that bookmark? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always argue, how large are those acknowledgments going to be?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little tiny logo that you need like a magnifying glass for.
Could be a STEM activity, you know. Find the logo. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the grantee communications kit that is for like anybody who receives funds, they have those sort of guidelines, especially like as small as you can go from a recommended guideline. And I think there's even like various levels of wordiness for describing it. And I think there's some like adaptability there based on what you're working with, I think. I'm leaning very heavily on all of it.
We do have an Office of Communications.
Some of the language is much more succinct. So if you have a very small space, that could be more user-friendly, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll ask another. Cindy knows I ask an abundance of questions earlier, so appreciate it.
We like it. We like it.
But just to clarify on billboard, let's go billboards, right?
Yeah.
So if the SLAA was to promote it on themselves, right? I'm here, come visit us, not okay. But if they were to promote, say, an online library resource, like, and that is funded with LSTA dollars, that billboard would be acceptable in that community?
Yep.
Yeah. Homework help, you know, tutor.com on I-95 or something.
Great questions. All right. Okay. All right. You want to pass me the clicker and we'll get started?
Yes, we have more. We have more information and more scenarios.
There's more content coming this way.
Coming at ya.
All right. All right. How do I do this? The green?
The big green.
Okay, great. Where do I point it?
I guess there.
This
Yeah.
way? Okay,
There we
great.
go.
Fantastic. So the 2 CFR Part 200 also covers direct and indirect costs. For the Grants to States program, the 4% administrative costs are an example of indirect costs. And your subrecipients might also request indirect costs. These distinctions are super important and so important that our legal team, our legal colleagues helped us put together a memo about it that we reference all the time, and it's linked in this slide. LSTA has a 4% administrative cap for SLAAs. Hopefully this is familiar to you. And there's no indirect cap for subrecipients, but be mindful of things like all facilities-related costs incurred at the state level, office or other furniture that doesn't directly relate to a program, and phone lines. You could include them in the 4%, but that's the cap. Any subawardees using the de minimis rate should calculate based on the MTDC, and those exclude equipment, rental costs, tuition remission, scholarships and fellowships, and participant support costs, et cetera. There's obviously some links in here that you can go to for additional information. And we'll talk about it tomorrow as well. And these are unallowable as direct costs because they aren't contributing to a specific project. Huge shout out to Madison for creating this gorgeous tree, the cost decision tree. This is all her. You have this in your as one of a handout. You should have it as a link as well. Madison made up this cost decision tree to help us, determine when IMLS funds can be used and if costs can be counted as match. It's just gorgeous, by the way. We love it. So we wanted to contextualize this decision tree so we can use, and we're going to use some examples again. West Cheesiter Public Library has a community memory project where they allow community organizations and individuals to digitize documents. They would like to purchase a scanner. Is it a direct cost?
Oh, no, I think
this is in theory what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
Use the pointer.
It's not working.
It's not working? No. Okay. We're gonna point to
Look at
yes.
the top. I'm not tall enough to.
We're gonna point to yes. It's a direct cost. Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, great. Is the scanner allowable? Yes. Are you using federal funds to purchase a said scanner? Yes. You may use federal funds for this project and purchase. Okay. Oh, thank you, folks. You're so adaptable. Another scenario: library staff training for training and monitoring patron use using the scanner. Is the staff training cost a direct cost? Yes. Oh, see, Dennis has figured it out. Or you can flip off the allowable cost. Is it allowable? Yes, but you have to prorate their time. Are you using federal funds? No, so you can use this as match. Oh. Okay, great. Oh my goodness. West Cheesiter Public Library has a community memory project where community organizations, oh, did I print those twice? I think I did. Is it one more? Okay. Is it the grant writing? Okay, great. The grant writing, West Cheesiter Public Library has a project where staff would like to learn how to write better grants. Who wants to do that? So, it's not quite in there. Is it on the back? Okay. Aha. Can you help?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the same library who's doing this community memory project, they're having a special event called a community attic, and it's really just a social event where they have coffee and treats. Is it a direct cost? Sure. Is it an allowable cost? No. So, you cannot use federal funds and you cannot use match.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now we're on to indirect costs.
My slides are all messed up. Okay, so again, the West Cheesiter Public Library has a community memory project where they allow community organizations and individuals to digitize documents. Potential indirect cost: electricity for the climate control and scanner use. Is it a direct cost? No, it is not. Is it allowable? Yes, it is. Are you using federal funds? No. If it's paid for by the subawardee, it may be counted as match. That is far less fun, Madison, than your middle finger being used as pointing to the squares, by the way. How about an SLAA administrative site visit to West Cheeseter PL to see how the project's going? Is it a direct cost? No. Is it allowable? Sure is. Are you using federal funds? Yeah, you are. You may use federal funds for this, and you can count it toward the 4%. Yep, there's a cap on that. Great. Thank you. Thank you both for vanning, and thank you all for your patience with me. Oh, great. Okay, great. Nice. All right, some other considerations related to project dates. They may affect whether something is allowable or not. So here we go. Some costs dated before the project period start date are unallowable. Materials and equipment must be ordered and delivered within the grant period. I just had this question. I get this question at least once a month. It's a big one. Liquidations of costs may occur up to 120 days after the award period is over. Also, we get that quite frequently. Grant period extensions, especially due to unspent funds, are generally not allowed. Generally not allowed. Okay, just going to say that on behalf of my boss. Okay. Okay, so we do have another scenario. This is the type of scenario that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. So,
Yes.
Great. All right.
Oh, hi, Program Officer Cindy.
Yes.
The Camembert County Public Library needs a bookmobile, and they want to use IMLS funds to do so. But since the pandemic, the wait for vehicles has been very long, and there is a chance it won't arrive by the end of the grant period. What should they do?
I'm so glad you came to me with this question when you did.
I thought of you first.
I so appreciate that. You are correct about the vehicle or any materials for any project, that they must be delivered before the end of the grant period. One option is to split the project over 2 grant periods, having a planning period for when it comes to researching the bookmobile, and then the next grant period for ordering. However, please know that you are taking a risk with this model, as future LSTA funds are never officially guaranteed. If you prefer to be risk averse, find another source of funding, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I think I'm going to do that.
Thanks.
I'm back as the LSTA coordinator in the great state of Old Gorgonzola. We have a statewide project where we purchase ebooks using a content credit model, and we have to purchase credits in advance. Can I purchase these content credits and just like have them to use whenever, or do they have to be spent by the end of the grant period?
This is a great question, and we do get it quite a bit. These content credits must be used before the end of the grant period in which they were purchased. Purchasing the credits and selecting the content later is unallowable. Thank you. Oh, I missed that. Sorry, everybody. There's a lot going on.
Flash shuffling.
Okay. Other considerations, salaries and benefits. Hours worked must be prorated to the project, and they generally cannot cover incentives or bonuses. Volunteer hours can be converted to in-kind match. And incentives and bonuses would have to be justified as necessary in keeping with the use of non-federal funds for similar compensation and part of a plan established before services were rendered. Related to program income, these are some questions you can ask. Does your project charge someone money? Earned funds must generally go back into the project and must be pre-approved by your program officer. So again, this goes back to the old adage of ask questions early, do not wait. We always want to hear from you. Always. Required certifications. The certs apply to all of your LSTA-funded projects. They require adherence to non-discrimination. They prohibit using your position for personal gain, and a full set of certifications are signed at the time of a new 5-year plan and at the onboarding of a new authorized certifying official. Annual certs are signed at the time of the award. If you happen to have an interim or acting authorized certifying official, we do not need a full set of certs from them, which require the signature of the state's attorney general or the equivalent. If there are questions, there is a recorded webinar on the Grants to States manual called I Signed My Name, What Does It Mean? That our general counsel conducted that may be helpful to review. And as a pass-through agency, if you are making sub-awards, there is a required documentation, risk assessment, and monitoring. You will still have gray areas. That is why we're here. We always want to hear from you. We encourage questions, especially early on in the project when things can still be shifted around. And more of these things will be covered in our monitoring session tomorrow.
That's right.
That concludes allowable costs. Now we're open for questions, any and all.
Mindy has one back here.
I have a question, and by the way, as a heads up, I want you to say no. So just
That's so helpful.
with regard to bonuses and incentives, is longevity pay considered in that bonus incentive?
I think we would have to have
category?
a conversation about that. We can't give a full yes or no on it.
I'll call Dennis.
But if you want us to say no.
Yeah, we can say no. We can say no. And I think one thing to point out is, let's say retrofitting bookmobiles is an allowable cost, but you don't want to deal with that. You can say no.
Right. Right, exactly.
As the SLA, you can say we do not pay for those types of costs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
On the bonus question thing, I thought there was some place in one of the CFRs where it says it has to be consistent for both state and federally funded people. So if there is some sort of, like in that longevity bonus, if the state had approved that to retain people, they were going to give a 5% for people who've been here 10 years and 10% for people who've been here 20 years or something silly like that. Then if it's consistent on both sides, then it would be allowed. Is that still the case, or is this saying the inconsistencies are not allowed?
The inconsistencies are definitely not allowed.
Yeah.
So it's good that it's consistent. That would be like a solid point in your cost justification. Cheese wedge?
Cheese
wedge. And that's really with any costs that you use federal funds for. They need to be consistent with how you use state funds as well. So if you wouldn't pay for something with state funds, but you'll use federal funds for it, you probably don't want to use federal funds for it.
Yeah, and I think, too, going back to that foundation of reasonable and necessary, it's like, is what this contractor is asking for reasonable to what they're actually doing? I think that's probably the most critical piece. And to what Madison just said, not using a federal contract to sort of skirt what you would normally do with the rest of the state employees. So yeah, that consistency is the key piece.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have two questions. So I know in the allowables or ineligibles, capital purchases are not allowed, or capital projects, so building, those type things. But oftentimes with online databases or ebooks, for us, our ebook purchases are listed as capitalized. Is there a conflict there, or is that we're looking at two different issues here?
Yeah, go ahead.
That sounds like a state language
I was going to say the same thing.
declaration.
Yeah.
So
It should be okay.
that, I mean.
Yeah, like ebooks are not
Okay.
a capital project.
They're, yeah, from an
They're
IMLS
not
standpoint.
they're not construction.
They're not a, yeah.
Okay, but we should leave it.
You don't
we
need an
should not-
Allen wrench for an ebook, so we're good.
Okay, so, but we should not confuse the issue by adding that verbiage into the SPR.
Please don't.
Yeah.
And my other question is back to the program income. We get this question a lot, is like if you have a makerspace and they have sewing machines and everything, and you're keeping bobbins and thread around, but people are having to, in case people need to buy bobbins or thread or whatever, we've always allowed that as cost recovery. What terminology would you prefer us to use in those situations? Because we're not really, it's not income as in we're selling big things, but we are allowing them to, there's a small nominal fee for supplies.
If the income is going right back into the project, then it's allowable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're not truly making money above that, then it's allowable. Disagree?
No, I would agree. Yeah, and that's generally how we frame program income. Is we generally want those funds that you are charging to go back into that same project. You just want to make sure that it's documented, that you have pre-approval from IMLS to do that.
That's true.
Terry?
Okay, we got a question, maybe getting into tomorrow topics, but we're going to raise it anyway. For sub-recipients, there's a question about if there's a state that issues multiple grant opportunities a year, and the sub-recipients are coming in for those multiple opportunities, maybe getting multiple awards. Do they have to submit certifications for each and every discrete award, or is it enough to have them just submit kind of one blanket certification for all of it? And I will say there's a veteran perspective on the line that said, well, we do it for each and every project.
I mean, I would recommend that you do it for each and every project, just so that you have clear documentation per project. So if, let's say, if an auditor were to come in and be like, where are your project files? And they go look through a project and they're like, the certs aren't in here. It's like, oh, that's because we keep the certs. Like, it's probably up to how you store your records and how you organize your records, but I would generally recommend doing the certs for every project.
I would agree. I know it was best practice when I was in Ohio that we would ask them to sign for every project. If you're storing them even electronically, you can just go to that particular project, and they're all right there. So I would also recommend it.
Not to mention the project directors at a
could be
regional
different.
or a system could be different. So I think it's just good to make sure everybody knows.
These are great questions. You
Yeah,
guys are
it's great.
sweating up there. but
It's a great group.
feeling it, yeah.
Such a great group. Thanks, Mara.
We won't accept any questions about allowable costs after this. So get them in
We're
now.
done. I certainly won't. I'm done. You saw this.